just very honored for you to ask me to do this. Basically, how it happened from my perspective was that you had this incredible pilgrimage in India, and then your mind started working of like, what's next? And it came into your mind to walk across the United States. And I consider you a dear friend of mine. You have played such an important role for me, and somebody who's devoted to the path of spiritual connection, wanting more for themselves, deeper understanding of themselves. And every time I see you, I just get lit up afterwards, feeling like, wow, Tim is really on a special, special journey. And so, because of all that, I mean, I'm so excited to talk to you about this walk and what it's all about. So thank you.
Man, I think to say the feeling's mutual is an understatement. You know, it's so funny. One thing I really want to commit to during the walk is the rawness and the realness.
Yeah.
You know, and not just about the walk, you know, but really challenge myself to open up more about my own, you know, my own journey, especially in a way like on video. I'm thinking about doing a lot of video on the walk as a way to bring people along. I think there's power in story. I think especially for what men go through, it's hard enough, you know, and I just think back to, you know, what would have been the things that would have helped me the most when I was struggling the most. And I think hearing what somebody else is going through or what they've been through and their perspective, and, you know, if it's somebody I look up to or is a mentor, or maybe I don't even know them, but something about them, you know, I gravitate towards. And, you know, when I think of you, I think of somebody who always encourages and brings out the most authentic, raw, vulnerable version of me. You know, every time we walk, every time we talk, I'm like, I got to step up, dude. I don't want to hide behind my shit around Danny for one, but more importantly, like, you just make it so easy. You know, it's like light in me wants to shine when it recognizes you, because it's like, oh, that's, you know, this is somebody that's doing it as well. So when I thought about a way to try and bring more awareness to the cause, you know, behind the walk, which we'll get into, in thinking about me trying to do something on video, I was like, you know, there's got to be a way to pull more realness and authenticity out. And you're the, you know, really the only person that popped into my head, not just the first. So I think you responded to my text in like 7 seconds.
So excited.
You're like, just say when. Yeah. So I'm so grateful, man. Thank you so much.
I appreciate the kind words. What was the origin of the walk from your perspective? What is the walk?
Yeah. The walk is, I'll be walking across America starting March 6th, 2025. The route I've chosen is going to be about 2,800 miles. And my estimated distance walked during the week, maybe about 150 miles. We'll see what happens. But that means it's going to take about 5 months, give or take, maybe 6. And, you know, the purpose behind the walk is to raise awareness and to raise funds for men's mental health and suicide prevention. I think the origin really goes back a bit. You mentioned my pilgrimage to India. Rewind to earlier of 2024. I just come off a good year for my business. Really the first one where I started to make money. 2022, I didn't make any money on the business. I was trying to get it off the ground. I was coaching people for free, trying to figure out how to build a community for men. In 2023, things really started to click. And I tried to double down on that type of business, but things felt off a bit, right? they just really felt off. It kind of hard to describe. Like almost like the business and the work was requiring me to go to much deeper depths to be able to help people in a much deeper type of way than I had been. I could sense that. And it started to create a lot of friction within the business. I'd have a big month, a low month. I would try and, throw money at the problem by investing in a coach or something to like get me back to making a bunch of money. And it wouldn't work out. And so I share that because I started seeking for something in the beginning of 2024. I didn't know what it was. I was like, man, I need to mix something up. I need to maybe go to Costa Rica for a month. I need to go on a Vipassana 10-day silent meditation retreat. Maybe I need to just go camp in the woods for a few weeks. Maybe I need to do a plant medicine retreat. And maybe I need to go to India. I'd been reading all these texts and books of people who'd gone to India and their life had changed anyway. And then India came across my plate, and it just so happened to be the most, perfect 2 to 3 week trip. It was a Bhakti yoga pilgrimage. Bhakti yoga, for people that don't know, is all about love and devotion of God, of the universe, of self-connection, of whatever. And so that was really, really pushing my comfort zone. Singing kirtan with a group in the morning, doing yoga, breathwork, meditation, going into all these temples throughout the country. It was what I was seeking because it was going to really push my comfort zone. But I knew I needed to grow in a certain way. And I didn't know what it was. So I was like, India, go across the country or go across the globe. This could be it. And it was an amazing trip. Really impactful. I felt some really, really big shifts happen with me. But when I got back, let me share this too. Leading up to India last year, starting in June, I really slipped into the darkest period of my life. From June till about mid-September, I was in a really deep depression. I was feeling a lot of apathy for the first time in my life. I didn't care about anything. All this stuff I had learned and practiced, and what I teach my clients about mental health and taking care of your physical well-being, the tactical stuff, the writing, meditation, sun, cold plunge, getting good sleep, eating good food, hanging out with friends. I didn't give a shit about any of it. And it was really tough. And during that period, for the first time, I had thoughts of killing myself. And that every single day for over 100 days. And so why India was I was kind of like, man, I have tried everything. I hired therapists, coaches, psychotherapists, plant medicine. I really have tried everything. And I'm like, something as kind of crazy as going across the globe to India. Maybe I'll find some answers there. And really, when I was in India, I remember sharing with somebody, I'm like, this was kind of it for me. I was like, if India doesn't create a shift for me that I'm hoping for, I don't know what to do when I go back home. And on the trip, actually, we were riding around in a bus as a group of 10, 11 or so, going around the whole northern part of the country, sometimes on the bus for 7-8 hours a day, visiting different sites and sacred sites, holy sites, going into the Ganges River, going to different temples and ashrams. It was really amazing. And every morning on the bus, we would share something we're grateful for. And it hit me a few days in. I was like, I just had 3 days in a row without a suicidal thought.
Wow.
And so I knew a shift was happening. I knew it had happened. And so I get back from India to get to the juice of, why we're chatting today. And, I'd like to say things were amazing and great from that point, but actually I started to slip back in a little bit. And it was almost like I was grasping for how I felt in India. And I was like, man, I don't know what's going on. I thought that was going to, help me, kind of awaken me to some kind of new way of living. I don't know. Right. And then I had the idea, come across my plate. I was on Instagram and I just saw this video of this guy talking about how he had walked across the country and how it changed his life and the impact it had on him and how he learned to love himself and to choose happiness every day and how it was a choice. And getting to see the beauty of the country and the universe and just everything. And when I heard him say that, it felt like I had a lightning bolt go through my body. And I was like, holy shit. I'm like, I want to do that. And then immediately I was like, I'm going to do that. And then, so for the next 4 or 5 days, I like couldn't get it out of my head. I was obsessing about it. So I was like, okay, what is this even possible? How far is it? How long would it take? I started thinking about what's going to happen to my business, my group that I coach. And next thing I know, 4 or 5 days later, I had outlined all the details. I actually made like a deck, and within that period, it was only about 24 hours after the idea hit me that I was like, man, what if I actually did this for something much bigger than just me and my own pilgrimage for self-connection or whatever I'm looking for? And what if I made it really about bringing more awareness to men's mental health, and taking what I had just gone through in the summer with suicidal thoughts and making it about suicide prevention and just bringing more awareness to that as well. And so I shared the idea with a couple people, and immediately it was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like I can't wait to watch this. And pretty quickly knew like, okay, we're doing this.
Wow. Yeah. So where do you stand now on suicidal thoughts and those feelings after having this mission?
I have a better understanding of them. One of the shifts for me when I was going through that, one of the parts where I really felt like I started to, turn things around, if you will, start to see a little bit more light, was a couple pieces of understanding. For one is recognizing that I don't want to kill myself. There is a part of me that wants to die. There's a part of me that is in so much pain that doesn't want to be around anymore. But that's not me at my core, right? And so starting doing as best I could to cultivate the perspective of, hey, there's actually just a part of me that's really hurting, that needs presence, needs awareness, needs attention, and needs love and compassion. Okay. The second shift, I think, really came when, this was a shower thought. And I was like, man, I've been so wrapped up in being somebody, in the guilt and shame of being somebody who's going through depression and struggled to figure it out, and was at this point in his life still dealing with apathy. I left tech sales because was going through 4 years of depression, was at a really low point, ended up getting fired for performance. And that was in 2020. And that was my rock bottom, really my turning point. And I turned things around, started to understand mental health better, created this business. Now I host events. I, have helped hundreds of guys in the last few years as clients. I have a group coaching program. And so to be going through this was kind of like, man, how is this possible? And also who do I think I am to be trying to lead men in this way, but still going through it, right? Especially in the way that I was. And so what shifted was seeing it as, hey, instead of feeling this guilt and shame about like, man, I am somebody who's depressed, I am like thinking about ending my own life, and starting to just shift the perspective enough to be, what if I just allowed myself to experience that? What if instead of resisting it and beating myself up for it and showering myself in shame, what if I could just be aware and be present with this experience that this human form is experiencing right now? And that may sound so unbelievably subtle, but it really shifted. It shifted where my awareness was sitting. And it allowed me to be like, oh yeah, this is just another experience. This is just one other thing I'm going through, and it may be more intense, certainly than some of the other experiences I have, but it's just another experience. And that really allowed me to soften the blow of the suicidal thoughts. So I could start to see them as thoughts again. Oh, there they are. Oh, it's coming back up. Okay. Well, what is that really pointing me to? What it's really pointing me to is that there is some untended, pain or hurt that I need to sit with, and so I'm really grateful that I went through that, because, I've talked with people before who have been in that position. And while I, try my best to understand and empathize, it wasn't really something I had been through. And so I think I have a lot of gratitude for going through it, because I'm just able to talk with people and sit with people now and truly understand, where they're coming from. And I also realize that it is just another experience. And it simply is a, kind of a warning cry, if you will, signal that, man, there's just some deep pain that has been ignored. And, I think ultimately that kind of combination of that stuff allowed me to, start to work through it a bit and just change my relationship to it.
And then what was different about it when you went to India with 3 days of not thinking about killing yourself?
There was, I think, being surrounded by such a loving and supportive group of people, for one. It was impossible to feel alone and isolated on that bus, on these switchbacks in the Himalayas and dodging cows and dogs in the road. Just a deep presence of all of us being there for the reason of exploring our connection with ourself, with the universe, with God, and in, support of each other. I think, I've been a lone wolf for a lot of my life. I've lived alone for a while. I've moved something like 15 times in 15 years. And so a lot of change and not a lot of, deep relationships that have been built where I allow myself to be seen. And I think on this trip, my commitment was really just to show up, put myself in that position, do it as best I could. And I think there was something really magical that happened on that bus and that trip that just allowed me to be immersed in that experience and what we were doing.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And then what are you going to do on the walk to create the conditions for yourself for the highest amount of peace, love, and joy, but also the highest amount of rate of success?
Yeah.
Are those two separate questions?
Yeah. I don't know if they should be. The thing that pops in my head is just to share the story as it comes, and to be with every experience. The physical challenge of it, the mental challenge of it, and to just cultivate a deeper sense of presence. I'll be meditating every day, like more tactical stuff. I'm gonna be, as I'm walking, I'm already thinking of different walking meditations or mantras, or walking for days without any headphones in or anything, and just cultivating, I think, a deep sense of presence and practicing being one with everything, right? Being one with the walk, with the cars driving by, with the people I, engage with, obviously with the landscape and whatnot. And what I'm hoping is that, that opens up a channel for me to deepen my connection with myself, things like my purpose, where I'm finding fulfillment, which I know a lot of the guys I work with relate to, is kind of figuring out, their path, their purpose, where they're getting meaning. I think trying to, to connect really with the mission of the walk. I feel like I know the mission of the walk now going in, but I just have this sense like it's really going to open up and blossom while I'm there, while I'm in it, while I'm just practicing being where I am. One of the things, we were talking about right before we started, the, how nice it is for you to be in a routine right now. Mm-hmm. You're in a season of life where it's like, man, I can just get up and boom, I can rely on these things every day. And that's something I'm really looking forward to. That single point of focus every single day, walking 30 miles and deepening my trust that it's going to work out and that it's going to be okay. Life, but also specifically on the walk. And I'm not sure, I know what success looks like for the walk. I think from my standpoint, my inputs to it is just what I described, is really a focus on presence, focusing on a much bigger picture about why I'm there, what I want to be connected to, like the vessel that I want to be for the mission and to others. And I just feel like that is the practice that I'll need to take in order to bring, what's going to come to life, and having a lot of trust in that and surrendering to that process.
That makes sense. Yeah. What's the actual schedule going to look like? How do you break down these 30 miles?
Yeah. So in a perfect world, I have somebody with me driving an RV or a car that's like a support vehicle. They meet me at different mile markers, maybe give me some food, stuff, pick me up at the end of the day. Hey, this is our 25, 30 mile mark. Pick me up. We go stay somewhere in the morning, drop me off there and go. I haven't found anybody to ride with me for 5 or 6 months. So it's actually looking more like I'm going to backpack. I'll have a little stroller too, so I can, carry the weight, so it's not on my body. So I share that because it's going to be harder to walk with a very specific mile mark every day. So there's going to be more variables, like where is there going to be lodging? Am I going to be camping? Am I going to be able to stay in a, let's say, Airbnb, maybe a hotel, maybe someone's place via couch surfing? So how I'm looking at it, I got my route going from San Clemente, starting in Southern California, going through Joshua Tree into Sedona, Flagstaff, through the mountains into Taos, New Mexico, and then down into Kansas, we may touch into Oklahoma, but into Missouri through the Ozarks, and then into Tennessee, out into Virginia. So I've got the route pretty much mapped out. And just to be honest, in terms of the stops, I went and highlighted, every city 25 to 50 miles along the way, so I can start to get an idea with rough estimates of time. But I chatted with somebody who did a run across the country, and he was saying that they pretty much only planned 3 weeks to a month in advance. They were like mapping out their stops along the way. So I'm really just looking at the first couple weeks in terms of where am I going to stay along the route? Am I going to be able to stay in an Airbnb, in a hotel, etc. So it's in terms of lodging, it's pretty challenging to map it. I had a friend ask me, he's like, oh, make sure you're booking campsites out ahead of time. And it's not feasible. It's not realistic because I don't know where I'm going to, be in a certain time frame, let alone how I feel during the day, how much I'm going to be able to walk, etc.
So this is a completely, in this moment, solo quest.
Yeah. There's probably been 10 people that have said they want to meet up and walk or support in some way. But yeah, for the bulk of it, it's set up to be solo right now.
And how does that land on you or sit with you?
It's I'm extremely excited. I'm excited for the challenge, the mental challenge, the physical challenge. I know I can do it. You know,
What makes you so sure?
You know, I think about the physical things I've done, training for sports, you know, preparing my body, you know, knowing what I need with nutrition and sleep from a physical standpoint. But from a mental standpoint, I know the hardest things I've been through. Like I think of last year and the months last year and what it took to get through that every day. And I know that, you know, that's just a small representation of what I'm capable of, you know. And I just, when I know how I can kind of shift gears and lock in when I have a single point of focus like that. So I also know it's going to be extremely hard and in ways that I can't imagine. And there's definitely a part of me that's looking forward to that. And there's a big part that's, you know, I feel a lot of fear around it too. The more I plan, the more uncertainty there is. I don't know anything. You just asked about lodging. Yeah. You know, that's like, you know, really the tender spot for me.
Yes.
Cause I'm like,
let's talk about it more.
I don't know where the fuck I'm going to stay. You know, I have not really camped my life. I've done some car camping. Okay. Maybe 10 times in my life. Never backpacked. And I don't think I've ever done one solo. Okay. So I know I will figure it out quickly, but I've never done it. So I'm like, what does it look like if you're in the middle of Kansas and there's not a town for 40 miles and, you know, you don't want to camp on the side of the road or, you know, on somebody's property by accident and they wake you up in your tent and they got a gun in your face. And so, yeah, I think about the massive uncertainty, you know, about where I'm going to get food, quality food. I'm going to have, you know, I'll have people helping me and send me care packages along the way. But yeah, definitely that stuff I think is probably the thing I think about most. I worry about most.
And how much is this all going to cost?
It's probably it depends on a few factors, of course. Some of my estimates are about $25,000. You know, including gear, lodging, food. Now, if I end up camping places, and I may actually end up camping at a way higher percentage than I've estimated. The more I plan, the more I think that's going to be the case. That's going to drastically reduce the cost. But that's sort of what I'm planning. So I'm just trying to raise about $15,000, you know, for gear, for food, you know, for potentially for some lodging, just to help offset some costs. And then also trying to, you know, raise 50,000 and beyond, which I think will actually crush that we'll be able to donate to some organizations that focus on men's mental health and suicide prevention.
Amazing. Do you have any idea which organizations?
I don't yet. I've started some conversations with a few, but yeah, still finalizing. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. It's so interesting from like a mental, a spiritual perspective, and then there's the financial perspective.
Yeah.
There's the emotional perspective, and the fact that you're doing all this alone is pretty wild. Like that. I mean, I remember the idea of walking across America only stumbled upon my radar when Mike Posner did it.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think he had an RV and a camper and on the whole thing. And it's like, even that's wild that he did that with all that. But to think about not doing it without any of that just feels like a wild proposition.
Yeah. I think the support has been amazing. Like the people that have reached out that have already donated, you know, within the first 30 days, we raised over $7,000. So it was amazing.
Wow.
Also companies that have reached out to donate some gear already. has been amazing. That, you know, friends and family that are like, hey, I want to meet up with you, or I want to support in any way I can. You know, I have some people that have already offered up their place to stay along the route. People that have offered to come out and drive and, you know, support me for a week or so. So I think while there may not be like a team that's with me the whole time, there's there's already been so much support. Yeah. And so I feel like that's just going to keep bubbling and growing.
Yeah. That's amazing, because it is, you might be doing it alone, but in actuality, there are so many people who love you, who support you, who want the best for you and want to see you see this through.
Yeah. Which is such a great representation of I think what we face with our own journey with mental health and this inner game and this inner work. You do have to go down, like there is a degree where you do it alone. No one shows up for you. No one forces you to face what you need to face and be vulnerable and raise your hand and ask for help. But when you're willing to just take that first step and put yourself out there, like that's what I just see more and more when people are just so supportive, you know, and loving. And so it's been really cool to see that start to take shape a bit.
You experienced that in India, where you just put yourself out there and then the world held you in a way. And what other shifts have taken place on your journey to more embodiment of love and more appreciation for self?
You know, I had such a moving experience in India. So we visited, I don't know how many temples, right? Whether it was a Sikh temple, we went to the Dalai Lama's temple in the Himalayas. We went to a number of ashrams and Hindu temples, and they were really powerful. What I picked up from them was just being in the presence of such devoted people. You know, people often saved for years or decades to make a pilgrimage to some of the places we went to. And so it was just really, really powerful. Though I didn't feel extremely moved or, I would say extremely moved in any of those places in particular. The experience that I had that kind of just blew my heart open, I would say, is we did a quick little bathing in the Ganges, just north of Rishikesh, which is where the Beatles went and studied in their ashram in '68. It's kind of known as like the yoga capital of the world now. And we went to this, we went on the shoreline north in the Ganges. And the Ganges, you know, for people that don't know, is viewed as and seen to be, believed to be goddess in form. So there's a lot of reverence around this river. And we were really prepped going into this, you could say, little ceremony we were going to do about that reverence and how to approach it with a lot of respect, approach it, be very intentional with what we wanted to ask for. You know, people will go and bathe and have wishes, if you will, or ask for certain things. And we were guided to think more about what we wanted spiritually, you know, for our own journey than maybe materially. And also warned at how deadly the river can be. The flow and the current sweeps people out. Even professional swimmers die every year. And so it was this interesting balance of, you know, treating it like this majestic goddess, which, by the way, was new to me, was pushing my comfort zone. I didn't just accept that right away. I'm like, this is kind of weird, but I'm here for it. And also being careful and mindful. And it's such an amazing balance, right? There's so much beauty in that, and depth to that. And, you know, so we go in the river, we do this little ritual where we offer the water back to her. And then you can do 3 offerings over your own head with the water. And then before you go in, we were coached to try and clear our mind. So kind of sat on the banks, just going through a little bit of a meditation. And then as you enter, what you bring forth is what you want to ask for. And so I had 4 things that came to mind over the hours leading up. And what happened was I felt this amazing presence come over me. And at first it felt like I'm here, like just being known, this is a presence. And then it subtly shifted into, I see you and I'm listening. And, I was going through the 4 intentions or wishes, if you will, in my head, just kind of one after the other. And when I felt that, like, I see you and like, I'm actually hearing what you're saying and I've got you. My awareness kind of came to my physical body and I noticed I just had like tears pouring down my face. And I didn't want to get out of the water. I sat there, I was probably in there for maybe 20 minutes or so, but it was like it was also pretty cold, the water. But it was so moving, and I think what I got when I left, I was, sitting there on the riverbank, just kind of both like that was amazing, but also awestruck that even happened to me. I was trying to make sense of it and process it. And that was also a reason why I went to India. So I was like, okay, well, that was amazing. That was incredible. How do I take this back with me? What do I do with it? And so I think that really cracked me open. I think that really allowed me to drop in, not just to that trip, but what I had been seeking, this connection with more than just Tim in this physical plane of acquiring shit and growing a company and living in Austin. It's like on a much deeper level, I could feel, I just felt this connection to everything and this connection to source or presence or God or the universe. And it was like an affirmation in a way, like I shared, just that feeling of like, yeah, I see you and I hear you and I got your back. I don't know if that answered your question.
It's beautiful just to hear that story. And I guess the next question would be like, how do you bring that to your walk? In what ways do you create the conditions to make something like that or live with that knowing?
I think what's scary is to tell that story and is to be more open about that experience. But I feel like that's what people crave. And the more I work with guys, like I just changed my program from like a 3-month to a year. So now I'm getting to see the ups and downs and, be with people for a longer part of their journey, which has been incredible. And what I'm seeing is the more guys lean into this work is the more, and they don't know this, they don't go in asking this, but is like this curiosity for what spirituality means, what connection to self means. Maybe there's connection to the universe. Maybe they use the word God. I don't know. Maybe it's all oneness. It doesn't matter so much the word you use. But I think what I had been doing is not addressing it for myself, not facing it head on. And one of the things I actually asked for in the river was to remove my resistance to God in whatever way that looks like for me. And which is, I think, is such a funny question to ask when I think about it, right? There's a strong resistance, yet there's a part of me that I don't know where this is coming from that is asking to get rid of this. But this resistance is all I've ever known in this lifetime.
Resistance to God.
Not using the word, not wanting to be part, not acknowledging, not knowing what it means to me, having, there's so much dogma around it too, but it like, not knowing what it could mean for me. And so I think, how I want to use that experience is, and other similar experiences I've had, is to not ignore it anymore. And I think be okay just talking about my experience and as I explore it, and allow others who have felt something, but try and categorize it in a certain way in their mind so it keeps them from really looking at it and going down that path, whatever it means for them. But I think just using that as a really powerful experience to start to talk about this stuff more, and do so in a way that is relatable, and can meet people where they're at.
Yeah. My girlfriend asked last night, why do some emotions feel so icky? And I responded, because they weren't allowed in our household growing up.
Yeah.
And if you think about, why do some thoughts feel so icky? Why do some concepts feel so icky? Because we weren't allowed to discuss or think about those thoughts or concepts growing up.
Yeah.
Does that resonate?
Yeah. Or they mean something. We've made them mean something, right? They have a connotation around them that it's like, dude, I don't want to be associated with that.
Right.
Or I don't like what I perceive the association to mean.
Right.
More than anything. And, I'm so grateful obviously for you, but for Ram Dass, who we've connected over much, because of his approach to owning his whole story, all the parts that his neuroses, as he would say, and the parts he struggles with, and to being kind of a master of none, but exploring everything, not being so locked into one method of practice of, studying, whether it's this God or religion or yogic practice or whatever, and being like, I'm gonna try everything. Let's see what works, leave what doesn't. I really, really just resonated with that, and his lightness with it all, and his ability to joke about, how, I don't know, how kind of weird some of this stuff can be at first. And so I think pulling from that, and taking that and, just, allowing the experience, and as it's come up for me, just to be real and just to share that experience as it's come up. I think that, as through sharing yours as well, and I have, through mine, it just opens doors for a lot of people. It just kind of allows whatever needs to happen.
Yeah. When you get out of the way,
yeah,
you allow people to judge you or connect with you.
Yeah.
And that's,
yeah,
it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting to hear that that's such a, that story is an edge for you to explore, to share.
Yeah.
Because we have this conversation all the time, and you don't, like, I would never know that.
Yeah.
Or think that to be true.
Yeah.
Based on how you show up with me.
Yeah.
You understand?
I was at helping facilitate a retreat when I got back from India. It was like a week back. And I shared in the group, we did this little evening ceremony and just shared something that, I forget the prompt actually. I think it may have been something around what we want to call forward in 2025. And I don't remember exactly what my answer was, but what I mentioned in my answer was I used the G word. I used God. And I think I shared a little bit about the Ganges story, not the whole thing. And I shared with one of the other facilitators that night. I was like, that's the first time I've ever shared in any type of public setting, or even just with one other person, and use that word before. And so it's just so, to step back with, even further back in my awareness and kind of just see how that part of the path has unfolded, is unfolding, where it's at now, how I'm so much more comfortable with it now because of, I think, the experiences I've had that just make it so undeniable for me,
Yeah. It's beautiful opening. And I think what's so great about this journey that you're on with the walk is that it's forcing you to greater levels of openness and connection with yourself and connection to God. And so if you have those things where you're becoming more open, you're connecting more with yourself and you're connecting more with God, it's very difficult to have something that's hurting you when you're in that realm. And it's like, this has opened you up so much already in the preparation. To talk on a podcast about this is something you've never done before.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. It's so amazing what has opened up, how I've opened up, and just not just opened up from the standpoint of sharing stuff, but opened up in terms of how I view the world and really what we're here for, what I'm here for, what I'm trying to figure out, the place I want to get to. So I can help everybody. Everybody I see is just an act of understanding they're going through something. And how can I show up to help them wherever they're at? That could be holding the door open for somebody with a smile. You know, it could be sitting with a friend who just went through a lost loved one or a breakup and just hanging out with them for hours. It could be obviously through a business and, you know, could be making a piece of content that just comes from the heart and really helps somebody with whatever they're going through. But I think it's, it's been so amazing to see the more that I lean into it and trust, surrender, which is of course the hardest part, but the more light comes from it and the more things work out.
Yeah. So beautiful. Like that you've recognized that you're living deeper into that every day. You mentioned fears before with the walk.
Yeah.
And you mentioned lodging as one of the top fears. What are other fears you have going into this thing?
Wild animals.
Wild animals.
Maybe some wild animals. Yeah. I hear that the most dangerous part of the walk is walking on the side of the road next to oncoming cars. And so, you know, I think that's definitely a part of it. You know, I there's going to be ways I really try and stretch myself in terms of what I'm sharing. I don't know what I want to do with content, how I want to talk about these things. I'm not really as scared as I am about, you know, with that as I maybe would have been 6 months ago.
Because
I just feel so connected to this mission and this purpose. And I feel like it's not me doing it. You know, like that when I mentioned, I felt like that lightning bolt went through my body when I heard it. There was a part of me that was like, oh shit, I guess we're doing this. You know, almost like I didn't even buy a ticket.
Right.
And,
you didn't choose
someone was like, you're getting on this train, you know? And there's actually so much comfort in that, I think.
Like you're being held.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you mentioned mantras before, things in your head that you're looking forward to repeating over to yourself over and over. What are some that hit you in this moment?
I think there's some that I think of that maybe help me shift my relationship to myself. You know, maybe things around self-love or different fears or limiting beliefs or insecurities that I've just held for, 30 plus years since I was a kid. So I'm interested to mess around with some of those and see if they have an impact. Also, things that would directly help me handle this fear better or the uncertainty, surrendering into the process, maybe having more faith, more trust, reminding myself that, while the walk is about me, and is about self-connection and self-discovery and all that comes from that, it's really not. And that feels like a means to just, to just expand more, to be able to put myself in a position to better connect with others, better communicate with others, better lead others in a way that, that needs to be. So I think a lot of them are just around still working through the specifics of them, and I know they'll go, but just around that surrender, trust, self-view, where I want to stand when I'm looking at myself. So things like that.
And what are the parts you're most looking forward to?
I think the single pointed focus, of waking up every day and being like, "Oh, this is our mission, man. We're getting up and walking and, engaging with people." Everybody I've talked to who's done something similar is like, man, the people you meet along the way is like, it'll blow your mind. People will literally give you their shirt off their back. They'll let you stay in their home. They'll get you water. They'll, give you food to eat. Um, and so I think that, and also practicing connecting with people on such a deeper level,
Mm-hmm.
than they're used to, seeing what comes from it, opening up dialogue just around real stuff, you know? And yeah, I think hearing stories when, telling people about the mission, I know so many people have been impacted by suicide in one way or another. So I think really, meeting with people, talking with them, hearing their story, and yeah, and just seeing, how I just believe I'll really see like how similar we all are and how it truly is all just one.
Yeah. When you talk about the goodness of people and people lending off shirts and giving
Yeah.
places to stay, it really makes me think that so often we actually don't give people the opportunity to help.
Yeah.
And when we do, how much people actually do want to help.
Yeah. I think it's one of the biggest things that men overlook with their mental health. We want to be the providers, the protectors.
Mm.
We don't want shit to be wrong with us. But to your point, by not raising your hand or it doesn't mean you have to have a mental illness or be like where I was last year to do this. It can just be like, man, I'm stressed out, I'm burnt out, I'm going through something. I don't know, I just feel sad today, whatever it is. When we don't allow others to be there for us, we rob them of being able to build a deeper connection with us. We rob them of being able to show their love to us, which is so important for human well-being. So, it really is, it becomes a selfless act to allow others to be there for you, and I think that's one thing that has been a really hard lesson for me to learn, moving so much, being a lone wolf, not historically not like wanting to open up or connect or be vulnerable with others, and I think really in thinking like that was, hey, I'm going to protect them. I don't want them to worry about me. I'm going to protect myself too. But on the surface, it was more like, I don't want them to worry about me. I got to figure out my own shit. And yeah, I didn't really understand how much people can get from helping others.
And when did that shift for you, the opening up and wanting to be more vulnerable?
In 2020, I was let go from my tech sales job for performance. And it was my rock bottom for sure. Had been through about 4 years of depression, wasn't sure what was next. And I was like, I can't go back into this line of work. And I was really in a rough place physically, mentally. And I ended up going down getting started on this path, on this learning about mental health and mindset and emotional regulation. I got into meditation and all this stuff. And it was only about 4 months, 6 months after that I really, really turned the corner. And what I started to understand was how common the stuff we go through is because of how human beings are wired and the role the ego plays, and we have all these different ways of trying to gain love and acceptance from others. We all carry fears and insecurities and inadequacies, and maybe a scarcity mindset. And how that impacts us is different. We all have our different ingredients, and our circumstances and our upbringing and our schooling is all different. But how we internalize it and how we hang on to that creates discomfort and creates pain. And that is something that is universal. And what I understood was like, man, a lot of all of the pain that I have and how I'm struggling is because of something I wasn't even aware of. It was something I didn't even have control of. When I was a kid, I internalized something happening, and I've been hanging on to that, and I've made that mean something about me. And I've created this role and how I believe I need to show up in the world in order for others to like me, in order for others to not be upset. And once I started to see how that mechanism worked, I was like, oh man, it's not just me. And I was like, you've got it. And so that allowed me to have so much more peace with going through stuff. So it didn't stop me from going through stuff. It doesn't stop me from going through stuff. But it was I just stopped carrying it like, oh, something's wrong with me. It's like, oh, this is just what I'm dealing with, and we all have it in some degree. But so I think that realizing, oh, it is an everybody thing allowed me to just start being more open and not taking it so personally.
Right. Because when you're in that state, it could feel like you're defected.
Yeah.
Or
exactly.
you're defective as a human being and that there's something wrong with you and you're unchangeable and everyone else has got the good packages and the good code, the hardware and software, but you're the one who's messed up.
Yeah.
And you broke through there and said, okay, I'm not actually messed up. This is just the hardware and software everyone has.
Yeah.
And, I understand that everything we do is an attempt to get love or an attention, a way to receive it. So
yeah,
makes sense.
And that was like the dam breaking. I started sharing online a little bit.
Which was when? What year? What?
That was March. My first share online was like March 2021, and on LinkedIn, and then what really just reinforced it every day was men who would reach out, and women too,
right,
and be like, "Man, this resonates so much," or we'd hop on a call, they would share stuff with me and they're like, I've never told anybody this besides my therapist or besides my wife. And so just, response after response after response, I was like, okay, this is like pretty obvious. People are either going through it and they're aware of it, or they're going through it and they're not aware of it. They're not there yet.
Yeah. Talking to people, being a coach, having access to talk to people and seeing their struggles makes you realize, oh, anything that I'm going through is I'm viewing through the lens of this person's struggle, and helps you grow through it. So I can imagine that you seeing other people's stuff allowed you to be like, oh, my stuff is not that big of a deal.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just that. It's just stuff. Yeah.
Anything that we didn't mention that feels important related to the walk or related to this specific journey of mental health and your journey?
No, I think we kind of covered the meat and the juice of the walk. I think my goal with it is just make it more like less stigmatized, more accessible, and have people shift their perspective around what they struggle with internally, whether you call it mental health or the inner game or mindset or, emotional well-being or wellness, high performance. Okay. Let's include all of that. I think what my goal really is to shift perspective around it, to be like, okay, maybe I feel great right now, but there may be a time I struggle, or there's people around me that are going through something difficult, and know that it's just like, okay, that's part of why we're here going through this experience, right? Is to use those challenging moments just as jumping off points, like as growth points. Okay. Also, I'm really committed to, to build, especially for men, just because that's who I work with, but is to build, something tactical, something like a playbook that can help. I know it can be very overwhelming. I don't know where to start, thinking that it's like only therapy, and therapy can be great, but there's so many other things that we can be doing. And so,
like what?
Well, for one, first and foremost, your physical health is the foundation, and so one of the things I work with the guys, with my clients is starting to be intentional with how you treat your body, the food that you eat, the amount of sleep that you get. Both greatly impact your ability to cope with difficult feelings and emotions. They both deeply impact hormones in the body as well. And that impacts all of that, right? So those things, getting exercise, getting outside, of course. And then also exploration of deeper questions of, why are you here? What do you want for your life? Have you ever actually asked yourself that? What is your perfect day? What does success look like to you? Screw the bullshit answers and the canned answers. Like, allow yourself to be vulnerable Yeah, it takes some vulnerability to say like, this is actually what I want in my life, and to be face to face with, maybe where you've been playing it small or the beliefs that have been holding you back. So doing some self exploration with that, I know you're big on meditation. I think meditation is maybe the biggest thing you can do, because I see it as a way to stop identifying with thoughts and learn to slow down your mind so you can be much more, I hate to use the word control, but in control of your reactions, your responses. Okay. So learning that, just finding your satsang, finding your community of people who are on, you've heard the thing, right? You are the product of the 5 people you surround yourself with, and cultivating intentionally the people you want to surround yourself with. That becomes easier when you identify the person you want to become and you are becoming, and so, yeah, goals can work, with that, et cetera. Other things for mental health is like getting off of screens, avoiding screens. And now we're getting more into tactical, but I think some of the things that really have a big impact, getting off of screens 60 minutes after you wake up, 60 minutes before you go to bed. Getting off things like social media, news, gambling sites, like crypto, opening Slack first thing in the morning, like things that just give you your attention back and create more intentionality with your life. And therapy can be pretty amazing and life-changing for people as well, because it allows you to start to explore the parts of you that need exploration, that are getting in your way from being the person you want to become, are creating pain and suffering. And all that other stuff I said first is going to make that way more accessible and easier for you.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I mean, I love how you broke down that it's not just about therapy, but it can be an amazing tool.
Yeah. What did I leave out? Anything that you're like, he better say this?
No, nothing you better say. I mean, for me, one thing that's been helpful is morning pages, writing out 750 words. It can be on a computer or a lap or a handwritten, and just writing out whatever comes to mind. It could be like, I don't want to write this. This is stupid. But just having physical representation of your thoughts.
Yeah.
And seeing it outside of yourself, for me, has been very impactful.
Yeah. I had a feeling you were going to say writing.
I mean, I'm writing, running, and meditating every day. So it's like,
that's it. That's all you need.
The Holy Trinity. That's what I need. Cool. Well, I'm grateful that we had such a great chat. This was amazing. I know you were looking for sponsors.
Yeah.
What type of sponsors are you looking for? Where can people donate if they want to get involved with this?
Yeah. We have a GoFundMe that I'll definitely link to. And as far as sponsors go, I'm really looking for some gear sponsors just to help with, some of the backpacking gear and maybe camping equipment or shoes. And I'll go through a bunch of shoes, and lower priority, but it would be amazing if there were, brands that could really align with this mission. A couple of the bigger expenses are food. So I'm looking to get set up with maybe a supplement company, like some protein bars, maybe some hydration. Also just ongoing food throughout the trip, whether it's backpacking meals or something, and then lodging, where applicable, or just, people want to donate, financially to the cause. And then another one I just shared just in case is any in-kind donations for maybe social media or marketing or promotion. I've got in touch with a couple media publications and trying to explore those routes. Nothing firm yet, but anything to just help spread the message, spread awareness, help us bring in more of the good stuff that we want.
Amazing. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing your heart here today, and going to places that are uncomfortable for you, and sharing the specific stories and moments that have impacted you deeply. I'm grateful for your vulnerability. I'm grateful for you challenging yourself in this way and being a beacon for me of somebody who's on the path, and the fact that you're going through such a difficult time and you never even know it, is wild to me. But it just makes you realize you don't know what people are going through, and to just show them love and kindness and care and compassion to the best of your abilities wherever you go. Yeah. Thank you so much for being you. And I'm so looking forward to what this journey has in store for you starting on March 6th.
Yeah. Dude, thank you so much. I appreciate you taking time to do this. Love you, man.
I love you too.